Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and especially to our Bayou Blitz family. I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts for Wednesday night's Bayou Blitz Season 1 season preview. And joining me, as always, is my partner in crime and my broadcast partner, Brendan Boylan. Brendan, how are you tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great. Different scenery for me, but doing great. Football's finally here, at least the games that count. And I do want to give a quick shout out because you and I talked about it during the week. Being able to be on the revamped Bayou Blitz, got to run some numbers, have about a 2-month sample size, and you guys are awesome. Just on Saints News Network, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook combined, we're averaging almost 600 people a week between the live show and the playbacks. That doesn't include Bob's socials. That doesn't include my socials and whatnot. So you guys have been phenomenal in supporting us since we brought the show back and since I've joined. So just wanted to give a shout out to you guys because Bob says it every week. It's your guys' show too. You guys are making your show look fantastic, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we really do. But we're going to ask more of you, folks. Let's try to double that number, at least double it in the next month. We want to. Again, this is your show. This is your Bayou Blitz. Let's make it nationwide. Let's have it be something that they maybe talk about on ESPN. Maybe have something that they maybe talk about on the NFL Network, or at least comes across the mouths and the Twitter feeds of those big pages. It's in your hands. We're trying, and I hope we do. Give you a good show. Trust me when I say that both Brendan and I are all ears if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see us improve on. But we're going to try to give you an entertaining product week after week. We are here for you week after week. And I echo Brendan's sentiments. You guys have done a fantastic job at making us come strong out of the gate. Let's prove that this is going to be a powerhouse show to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's been great so far. It's also great to see the New Orleans Saints preparing for week 1 against their bitter rivals, the Atlanta Falcons. And we have so much to talk about going into week 1. We're going to have some updates from our guys down in New Orleans with John Hendrix, who was at the facility today. Kyle T. Mosley is going to join us a little bit later as well to give you guys the latest on injuries and other news when it comes to the team. But Bob, I want to start here because I found the quote really funny, and that was from Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, when talking about Cameron Jordan today, said to the media that he was hoping he'd be in the crowd essentially asking questions as a member of the media by this point, because we know that's the career that Cam's going to go into once his playing days are over. But nonetheless, Cameron Jordan's going to be a thorn in the side of the Atlanta Falcons yet again. And we get to see one of my favorite stats come to an end, and that is Cameron Jordan's all-time record of sacks to a single quarterback. That was Matt Ryan. And now with Matt Ryan being in Indianapolis, who knows when or if there will be another Cameron Jordan sack of Matt Ryan. But I still expect Cam Jordan to get after it against Atlanta, get a sack or two of Marcus Mariota. Bob, your initial thoughts. Anytime you have a head coach single out a player like that and say, "Oh, I really wish he'd just retire already," that's got to be some encouraging things to hear if you're the Saints defense, yeah?
Oh yeah, and Cam Jordan is an all-time great, certainly a Saints all-time great. But I chuckled when I saw Arthur Smith's comments too. Listen, Cam has 23 sacks, in his career against the Falcons, 14 sacks in his last 9 games. And 31 pressures in his last 9 games. That is those are just mind-boggling statistics. And you almost root for the Indianapolis Colts and the New Orleans Saints to play in the Super Bowl. Just to envision Cam Jordan bringing down Matt Ryan on a 4th down late in the 4th quarter to clinch a Super Bowl victory. But I digress. We're going to get into our season predictions in a little bit. Cam is certainly the leader of what we expect to be a league-leading New Orleans Saints defense. And despite the pieces that the Saints have on offense and have added on offense this offseason, I still think that this is going to be a very defensive-oriented team, especially early in the year, because I do expect some hiccups on offense, especially until that passing game gets clicking. But this defense is starting with that front seven, causes so much disruption for opponents. And I expect that to be one of the major keys to a potential victory against Atlanta.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about this New Orleans Saints defense and how the defense might be changing the narrative of how teams and fans from across the league view New Orleans, because over the years it's been Drew Brees, Sean Payton. It's been that high-powered offense. But you look at the Saints defense over the last few years and how good they've been, always towards the top of the league in rush defense, turnovers, top half of the league. And for people like me that are fantasy nuts, the Saints were the second best scoring fantasy defense last year. And we're talking about this defense potentially having gotten better. You just said it. You think that for New Orleans to come out victorious against Atlanta, you're going to have to see a strong showing from that defense. Who on the defensive side, outside of Cam Jordan, who we just highlighted, do you think is going to be a key in their matchups to helping New Orleans defeat Atlanta?
You got to go with the other edge, Marcus Davenport. Cam has been a key and a thorn in the Falcons side throughout his New Orleans Saints career. But people forget how dominant Marcus Davenport was down the stretch last year. Cam Jordan had a monstrous stretch run, but Marcus Davenport statistically was right behind him. A lot of us, myself included, were saying it looks like this kid finally put it all together after being a first-round draft choice in 2018. Now all he needs to do is stay healthy. Well, knock on wood, he's not on the injury report at all, which we'll hear a more updated version from John Hendrix and Kyle Mosley, as Brendan said, in a little bit later. But to be able to bring pressure, a consistent pressure down in and down out on an offensive backfield from both edge spots, I think is the key to any defense. We know Cam can bring it. We've suspected that Marcus Davenport can bring it if he could just stay healthy. And the Saints have an extremely deep edge rushing position. I look for big things from Peyton Turner this year. I love to know passing, and I think Carl Granderson is an extremely underrated player. Having said all that, Marcus Davenport is still heads and shoulders above all three of those players talent-wise. If he could stay on the field, my challenge to the opposition would be, who are you going to double team, Cam Jordan or Marcus Davenport? Because if you double team both of them, or even if you just chip one of them, you're still leaving one-on-one across the interior for a Demario Davis blitz, a Tyrann Mathieu blitz, or even David Onyemata, creating all kinds of havoc in the center. So that, and all of those players are going to be key to what the Saints do defensively, not only in week one, but throughout the season. But for them to be even more effective, I think that Marcus Davenport has to match Cam Jordan's level of play on the other edge.
Well, let's stick with the defense and talk about some of the matchups. That's what the Bayou Blitz family voted for on Twitter this week in terms of what they wanted to hear from us. So let's talk about some key matchups. First, with the New Orleans defense versus the Atlanta offense. This Atlanta offense a little depleted and maybe not as recognizable as years past. We mentioned Matt Ryan gone. Last season saw Julio Jones gone. And now Julio Jones with another NFC South team. A little weird, just a little, to see him in a Tampa Bay jersey. Calvin Ridley out for the season due to suspension. They've gone through a plethora of running backs since the Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman days. So, Bob, outside of Kyle Pitts, who should Saints fans be looking at and circling when they're looking at this Atlanta team as a potential threat? You look at a guy perhaps like Drake London, who was drafted in the first round. You look at Marcus Mariota, a former Heisman Trophy winner. But who is that name that doesn't jump off the screen at you but could be really dangerous for Atlanta in week one?
Well, look, Mariota is going to present problems because of his athleticism, and we know Dennis Allen defenses historically have struggled against mobile quarterbacks. You mentioned Drake London. He is going to be a very valuable weapon. You click on his film from USC, he reminds you a lot of Michael Thomas in the way that he plays the game. But the guy, for me, other than Kyle Pitts, that could create matchup problems for this Saints defense is Cordero Patterson. And Cordero is listed as a running back, but he's a jack of all trades, and he's been around in the league for a while. The Falcons, to their credit, and I don't give Atlanta credit for much, but to the Falcons' credit, they finally used Cordero Patterson correctly last year. They moved him around the formation. They got him heavily involved in the passing game, both out of the backfield and split out wide. Obviously we know how good he is as a kick returner. When Atlanta was able to spread opposing defenses out, Cordero proved that he was a decent runner out of the backfield. He's not a traditional running back. He's not the kind of guy that can pound at a defense for 18, 20, 25 carries. But he is the threat to easily put 140 or 150 of all-purpose yards up against the defense. And Patterson and Pitts were both matchup problems for the Saints in the first game between these teams last year. Now, Dennis Allen and that defensive staff did a wonderful job of adjusting against Atlanta in the rematch, but Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts created all kinds of issues for that Saints defense in that first matchup, especially Patterson. He just went crazy against them. And again, he's not the kind of guy that you worry too much about going over 100 yards rushing. But as an all-purpose threat, he can go well over 100 and really has the skill set to take over a football game.
Well, I'll agree with Cordero Patterson, and this is what I'll say because I'm a weirdo. I draft late in fantasy. I know you do too. I'm just a firm believer. Why would you draft before the preseason? Guys get hurt. But without me rambling on about that, Cordero Patterson, really, really good flex play in PPR leagues, even this year. And I know some analysts are saying he's 32. What's the direction of this Falcons team? I would still say pick him up late in your drafts if you haven't already, or if he's available in free agency in some deeper leagues, or thinner leagues rather, because he is a great PPR threat because of all the things Bob just said. He's listed as a running back. He's not going to sit there and get 20 rushing attempts a game, but he's going to grab maybe 7 receptions a game. If you're playing PPR, that's an easy 7 points. Anyway, go grab Cordero Patterson. For New Orleans, you mentioned Kyle Pitts for Atlanta. New Orleans, they had a guy who was going to sit and guard your tight ends, guard those running backs out of the backfield. And we talked about it last week. They traded that guy. I know it kind of went under the radar to Saints fans. I know it's not like this. This might be the first time you're hearing the Saints have traded Gardner-Johnson. But nonetheless, no Gardner-Johnson off to the Eagles. He was your guy, really your specialist to go and be your chess piece with those odd matchups that you had against an offense. New Orleans now without that. Who do you see being in charge of the matchup with Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson?
Kyle Pitts, I see it being Tyrann Mathieu most, but it depends where Pitts lines up. If Atlanta uses Pitts out wide like a wide receiver, and they will, it would not surprise me one bit to see Marshawn Lattimore matched up on him. Lattimore eats those physical receivers alive, and Pitts is as big and physical and athletic as they come. Tyrann Mathieu gives up a significant height advantage to Kyle Pitts, but Honey Badger's used to that throughout his career. He still tends to play bigger, athletic tight ends very aggressively. Even when they're coming off of the line of scrimmage, just to throw them off their routes. Don't be surprised to see a PJ Williams or a Marcus May lined up on Pitts either if he goes into the slot. What you don't want to see, and I love Demario Davis in every way, that a person could love a football player. But too often last year, I saw Demario Davis or another linebacker matched up on Kyle Pitts when he went wide. That's where Atlanta schematically beat New Orleans that day. And those are the type of matchups that Atlanta is going to try to exploit this Sunday. But that's where, if Pitts goes in motion coming off the line of scrimmage, you're going to see a little bit of scrambling in the New Orleans defensive backfield. Interested to see how they're going to handle that communication-wise. But man-on-man wise, I think it's going to be Tyrann Mathieu or Marshawn Lattimore on Kyle Pitts most often.
Well, there you have it. Let's take some questions. How would you rate Matt Ryan's replacement? I think this is an interesting question because for a lot of people, they haven't seen Marcus Mariota in a few years. Remember, he was in, I almost said Oakland, but Las Vegas season. I'm still getting used to the Chargers moving and
right,
all that. The West Coast just messed me up. But how would we rate Marcus Mariota? I mean, if you want to go back to the Oregon tape, Heisman Trophy winner, for a lot of people was the clear-cut number one quarterback of his draft class. I know, obviously that didn't go the way for some people, but for a lot of people, he was the clear-cut guy because of his mobility, what he brought to a modern NFL.
Did you freeze? Okay, folks, I think Brendan froze on us. Gypsy, I hope we're still coming through on our live broadcast. Gypsy, I'll answer your question. Let's talk about the differences that Marcus Mariota brings to the table as opposed to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was a big, tall quarterback, a prototypical pocket passer, that scanned the field and picked defenses apart with accuracy. You're not going to get that out of Marcus Mariota. Mariota is an athletic type. You're going to see some RPO run pass options from him, but more often than not, I think you're going to see Atlanta try to work Mariota out of a moving pocket. Get him on the move outside of the tackle box, a designed rollout pocket, where he could, survey now, for most quarterbacks that does cut the field in half, but a good offensive coordinator will design your offense to still take advantage of certain matchups. Mariota is very good at throwing on the run. He's probably more accurate on the run than your average NFL quarterback. But he does have a little bit of a height deficiency. When he does stay in the pocket, he traditionally does not handle pressure well. That's why I do think Atlanta is going to want to get him on the move. And it's going to be up to the Saints pass rushers to not only obviously get pressure on Mariota right at the snap, but B, remain in their containment responsibilities to not give Mariota any rushing lanes or any clear visual passing lanes. That's going to be the key to the New Orleans front seven and how to disrupt Mariota when he's on the move.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm here. You did a good job answering the question with or without me here. But Marcus Mariota, I think, is a guy that even for me, when he became a free agent and New Orleans was looking for potential backup quarterbacks, of course, you look at last year, how valuable Marcus Mariota would have been to New Orleans. It was a guy that I thought New Orleans should have brought in, or at least taken a look, and I'm sure that they did their homework on him. But I think Mariota is deserving of a second chance to start in the NFL. Unfortunately for him, I think he's on one of the one of the least talented rosters in football, if not the most, or the least talented roster in football. But nonetheless, I completely agree with you, Bob. Containment's the biggest thing when it comes to rushing quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks. And you look at New Orleans' history over the years against mobile quarterbacks, whether it was Dennis Allen's, whether it was Rob Ryan, whether it was the Spagnuolos. I mean, you can go down the list, and New Orleans has consistently struggled against quarterbacks that can get outside the pocket. So we talk so much and we praised those defensive ends so much in Davenport, in Jordan, and even Peyton Turner's. They're going to have to do their jobs containing and not getting ahead of themselves. I mean, every edge rusher, right? They just want to speed past their tackle. They want to make a nice move and get right to the quarterback. Well, when you're going that fast, one direction, sometimes you can overplay it, and the quarterback's able to make a play. So, nonetheless, Bob, I think you hit the nail on the head. Let's flip it to the offensive side of the ball. I know, injury reports said a lot this week, and I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but we can certainly talk about it. Michael Thomas was back at practice this week. Michael Thomas was limited today, but he is expected to play week 1. That was per our very own Bob Rose. So, looking at the New Orleans offense and looking at the fact that this is a team that is almost brand new, if you want to put it that way, because Jameis missed a lot of time last year. Mike Thomas didn't play at all last year. Jarvis Landry's a new addition. Chris Olave is a new addition, right? You get Andrews Pete back. You're playing with a new left tackle. I mean, in a sense, this is, you know what? Let's have fun. Let's call it a Frankenstein version of what the Saints were last year. It's just kind of pieced together a little differently. I think the Saints have the ability to be and return to being a top 10 offense in the league after last season. They get a good opportunity against a divisional opponent, though, like I just said, maybe the least talented roster in football on paper. Divisional opponent games, those are always difficult, Bob. And regardless of what people think, regardless of the national media, regardless of what some of our loyal viewers and listeners say, this is going to be a tight matchup, and it's going to really test a New Orleans offense that hasn't had a great ability of growing that chemistry because of injuries, whether it be Mike Thomas, whether it be Jameis Winston this offseason. So what are you looking for positively for the New Orleans Saints to show offensively against Atlanta on Sunday? Because, like I said, I think this is going to be a really tight one, and it's really going to test a team and their willpower to face adversity and face some of the injuries they have even in this offseason.
Yeah, it is going to be a challenge for them. And because of that and the new pieces in the receiving core, I think the Saints are going to come out of the gate looking to establish the line of scrimmage and establish their running game first and foremost. They need to have balance. And for a quarterback like Jameis Winston, who operates so well, with the play action anyway, that's going to be a strategy that we're going to see the Saints employ throughout the season. But I expect some hiccups in the passing game early on, just from a timing-based ideal. I think ultimately Jameis Winston and his wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry specifically, I think they have the makings of a heck of a passing game, especially when you factor in Alvin Kamara and the depth that you have at wide receiver and Marquez Callaway and Deontay Hardy. Again, we saw Winston and those receivers. They were extremely sharp early in camp, but they just didn't get very many, hardly any reps at all during the preseason games. That does take a toll, ladies and gentlemen. Not as much offensively as it does defensively, but we had Willie Whitehead on a couple of weeks ago, and he agreed with us. It's absolutely a factor early in the season on both sides of the football when you have new teammates around you, when you have new teammates behind you or off to the side of you. It takes time to learn their tendencies. It takes time to for your own muscle memory to adapt to what your teammate does well and doesn't do well. And because of that, and I don't expect the Saints passing attack to be an extremely timing-based a timing-based approach like it was with Drew Brees. It's going to be more big play, more down the field, because that just plays into Jameis Winston's strength. But the intermediate routes, which are the strengths of Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Jarvis Landry, that's what's going to take time to build up a little bit of chemistry. So if we see some misfires early on, ladies and gentlemen, don't scrap this passing attack just yet. It just still has a ways to go. And because of that, offensively, the Saints need to establish the running game and control the line of scrimmage first against a very thin Atlanta defense.
Well, we talked about the injury report, talked about Michael Thomas there. Let's bring in the gentleman that had the injury report for us at Saints News today, the GM and editor of the Saints News Network. There he is, Mr. Kyle T. Mosley. Kyle, we were just talking about Michael Thomas. That's the big news today, right? He was back in practice. He's expected to give it a go in week 1. Bob expects some hiccups, not just from Thomas and Winston, but the entire receiving corps because of some of the injuries they've dealt with both last season and within this offseason. What are you looking for out of New Orleans week 1 against Atlanta to get this offense clicking again? And like I said to Bob prior, an offense that could certainly improve from last year and easily return to being a top 10 offense in the NFL.
First of all, who let me on this program? So, hey. All right, how y'all doing, man? Come on, let's have some fun. How y'all doing out there, Who Dat Nation? Basically, man, Brendan, I just feel as though Bob made some really valid points. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to smooth out the wrinkles and some of the kinks, but I anticipate the offense is going to operate kind of like we saw on that one drive that Jameis had early in the game, because sometimes defenses take a while before they're able to catch up with the offense. I'm talking about opponents. So you may see a lot of that early on. The one good thing going on for the New Orleans Saints is that the defense is going to possibly clamp down on that Atlanta offense. And they got some issues they have to be able to work out themselves with Mariota, or is it going to be Ritter later in the season or whatever. You just don't know what's going to happen there. Hamstring issues has been something about those Ohio State guys, man. They always had those hamstring issues. Marshawn had it. Michael Thomas early in his career, he had that issue going on. I just think also Thomas could have been pressing a lot, just trying to get back on the field. So it might have been just one of those things where the Saints took care of it, measured what was he, where he was, and got him back to where he was today at practice. And he may get a few snaps. I don't think he's going to have a full load of snaps like Jarvis Landry as well as Olave. And, Traquan's injury is the one that you have to really look at. That's a concern for the Saints because he's a great blocker. I know a lot of people, especially Bob Rose, have other thoughts about Traquan. But he does block well. And I remember I told you he was going to still be on the team, Bob, because you did. Yeah, Dennis Allen is very conservative like that. Think about some of the guys that he's still stuck around with as far as linebackers with Bond and brought back, I forgot the Hanson and those guys, so he likes people who he knows and he can trust, and you can be able to trust Traquan Smith knowing the New Orleans Saints offense, especially with Pete Carmichael. But Brendan, I think all in all, the Saints, we don't know what to expect out of the Atlanta defense. That's the first thing. We don't know who they are, what identity they will have going into this season. But if I know one thing, the Saints defense is going to have to face some wrinkles, and they might have some trick plays up their sleeve with Atlanta as well. I have a relative that is now the offensive coordinator / analyst for the Falcons, and they think they're going to bring the pain on the Saints. So just expect some trickery up their sleeve. So all I'm saying is I don't think I would be more interested in seeing how the Saints are able to progressively get better in all of the quarters. That's what I'm looking for. Will they lose this game? I don't think so, but Atlanta, is a rivalry, and those guys want to prove a point as well. So We have to take care of the ball. Special teams has to be special, as Rick Gailey would always tell us. And, just expect that the wide receiving core, like you said, we'll have to work out some of their kinks, and there's time.
Kyle, one of the few complaints that I had about Sean Payton, at all during his career, but it really manifested itself last season, was his lack of usage of Alvin Kamara in the passing game. Do you expect Kamara and Pete Carmichael, as we all know and have alluded to all offseason, Pete Carmichael was a big part of that Peyton offensive brain trust. So a lot of those concepts remain. Do you expect to see Alvin Kamara utilized more as a receiver like we saw earlier in his career during 2022?
Yes, because what opens the field for Kamara is the fact that you have wide receivers that are a little bit more dangerous than what you had with Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith. Okay. And who else? Who played the third wide receiver? That's, Deontay Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sorry.
Kevin White.
Yeah. And Kevin White. So, so right now, okay, let me just digress a little bit. So that's what was happening with Alvin Kamara last season, because he was not having any of that open field type of space to be able to work his magic, so to speak. And, he's like, remember how Reggie Bush was and Darren Sproles were, those guys had to have a little field to operate one-on-one against a linebacker or nickel or whomever to be able to be effective in the passing game. And that's the only reason why I think he was limited. And you saw faster linebacking cores. And we always talked about how the speed of certain linebacking cores were going to neutralize the New Orleans Saints. Mm-hmm. Last season, when they knew Alvin Kamara was your only weapon, your only firepower, you didn't have Jameis Winston anymore, who was going to get him the ball and who was going to say Alvin could be dangerous, because they weren't respecting the wide receiving core.
Well, going back towards the defense, because that's what Bob and I were talking about before you got on the show, I think it's really easy to look at what New Orleans added to the defense this offseason. Of course, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May might have been the perfect replacement for Marcus Williams, but Bob's brought it up a lot in our shows so far this season that when you inject new players into a secondary like that, miscommunication is going to be a potential big problem early on in the season. Do you feel that way as well, Kyle? Do you think the Saints might have some miscommunication that leads to big plays down the field against Atlanta?
Any new relationship has miscommunication issues. Bob should know that, being a newlywed, and you're about to head that direction, Brendan.
I want to make sure she's out of the room before I answer, but yeah.
So yeah, you're going to have miscommunication issues. However, I must say this: these guys are veterans. Mm-hmm. You have Tyrann Mathieu, who's a veteran, Marcus May, who's a veteran. Those guys talk, right? They talk. So hopefully that miscommunication is not like what we saw, was it a couple of seasons ago, with Marcus Williams was having some issues back there from time to time, right? Marcus Williams is a different guy, because he was kind of quiet at times, and I don't think you're going to have that same type of issue coming from Tyrann Mathieu or Marshawn Lattimore, or those guys. They have a little bit more energy in how they communicate. Will there be some hiccups here and there? Yeah. Don't expect perfect games, but I mean, that's why they play the games, right? You got to work out the kinks, and we're going to be able to see how this defense is going to evolve and mature during the season as well.
And thank you for bearing with us, folks.
Okay.
We are having some communication issues of our own, but yeah, not between the three of us. We'll blame it on technology and society. Kyle, what
Hold on.
what are you hearing, or what do you know?
Okay, say that one more time, Bob.
Okay, I apologize. What are you hearing about Paulson Adebo? We've heard conflicting reports about his injury, situation. And even though I don't think he was even on the injury report today, was he? But he did not practice.
No, he was on the injury report, if I recall. From what was sent over, the ankle was disclosed as the issue, right? If I recall, and that's from the initial injury report that was sent over to us, unless there was some modification after I initially put the report in. I know John did some updates. So I think he was having some issues walking around with some support with that ankle, right? I don't know if it's going to be an issue affecting him long term, and we really do hope not, But we do have Courtney Roby as a suitable backup in that position for him. The veteran can be able to come in and stop some of the guys. And I think you look at the depth that the Saints have as well in the defensive backfield. So I'm not too concerned about what's going to happen if he does play or if he doesn't play.
Yeah, Bradley Roby's definitely become a luxury for New Orleans going into this season, because it was a guy that a lot of people thought might be a casualty just based off the depth that New Orleans had, and all of a sudden he's become a luxury. Kyle, do you see anybody else on this team for New Orleans that has become more of a luxury than an asset this season?
I don't know. Brendan, when you talk about luxury, man, you're talking about having quality depth. So, yeah, you do have quality depth in the defensive backfield, but I don't think I would peg them as a luxury. I would peg them as it's good to have, because right now you have guys that you could be able to depend on. You have the young rookie Taylor, who may have made it more reasonable for the New Orleans Saints to jettison Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? And we talked about some of the issues he was having in the locker room. I know, Bob, you went into great detail last week's show in divulging some of the issues that were going on there. But I don't know, Brendan, if luxury is the right word. I don't see luxury right now across the board, but other than defensive backfield as being one of the strengths of the team.
Kyle, when you look at this Saints roster, everybody knows the usual culprits. Kamara, Winston, Thomas, and everybody on the defensive side. But who does Kyle Mosley just kind of sit back and grin about when thinking about nobody's talking about this particular player, but I think he's going to have a big year for the New Orleans Saints?
Oh, wow. Man, that's a great question.
I'm allowed one a month.
Yeah, well, look, man, you do great at asking these questions, Wow, that's a good question, Bob. I don't have one of those. All right, it's like CJ, I thought was going to remember when he first came out. I kept on saying, "This guy, you got to watch." All right. Last season, it was a Paulson. You got to watch him, right? Yep. If anybody would be Taylor. Right now, if it's one of those guys that's not on the radar in a lot of people's mind, it may be Alante Taylor. It may be him not immediately in the beginning of the season, but somewhere in the gut of the season, maybe that guy rising and making the plays and having some of the offenses a little off schedule because they weren't aware of what he could be able to do. That might be the guy, if you want to point it
That's
out
a good
there.
one.
But I still think about those two old guys now. Think about them. DeMario Davis and Cameron Jordan, and I still look, Cam has to have one of these all-pro years. I just have a feeling it's going to be an all-pro season for Cam Jordan, and he's going to do something remarkable, and it's just going to be one of those type of seasons that lives in New Orleans Saints lore, that Cam Jordan is the guy, so I can't wait to see what Cam does.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Brendan, you're not skating from this question. I want to hear your response too.
Same thing. Guy I've talked a lot about on the show, and I think it's just because there's so much attention on Marcus Davenport being healthy and Marcus Davenport producing, and look what he did at the end of last year. I mean, you forget that the Saints talked about depth a second ago. The Saints drafted a defensive end in the first round just a year ago, and Peyton Turner had his flashes, but just like Marcus Davenport, couldn't stay healthy. I'm still really high on what he could contribute. Maybe not as a top-tier defensive end, but a guy who's going to come in, provide depth for the Saints, provide quality snaps, and maybe pick up 6 sacks next year or this season. I really think Peyton Turner's got some good things coming to him. And then New Orleans has a really interesting decision to make, and that's talking a little bbit further down the road. But if Davenport has a good year and you still see a progressing Peyton Turner, I mean, they're twins, right? They're the same person. But who's, are you going to pay Davenport and keep both of them, or are you going to let Davenport walk? That's something we'll worry about a little bit later. But I really think Peyton Turner is going to have a good year in New Orleans.
Oh man, that's a good one.
It is.
I'm still waiting for the breakout of Peyton Turner. Like you said, I think Davenport could be one of those breakout guys. If we can keep both Jordan and Davenport healthy, think of that rotation behind him. Okay, Brendan, you go back to that question you said about luxury. You got Granderson, you have K-Pass, and then you have Turner, and that's a great depth to have right there. You have great length. You have guys who are speed guys, but they're not going to blaze, new trails, but they are consistent at what they're doing, and I like that core of players right there, man. So, yeah. I think Davenport is the key to the New Orleans Saints defensive line, because he has been in and out, hurt, injured, nicked up, whatever. And, injuries are the greatest equalizer in this game. You have 1-2 key players that get nicked up and out of a game, opposing offensive coordinator would be smart to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I've said many times, we know what Cam can do, and I agree with you, Kyle. I think he is in line for another All-Pro, maybe historical campaign. You know what Mario can do on the second level. There's nobody better than him. I don't care who you are, who you think. But the guy I'm looking at, a guy you're a big fan of, Kyle, the Big O, David Onyemata. He had an extremely quiet year last year. We know he missed 6 games because of that suspension, but he didn't seem like the same player when he came back. He looked like, to me, down the stretch, those last few games, he looked like that motor was starting to rev up a little bit. So you got Cam Jordan on one side. You got Marcus Davenport on the other. You have the depth with K-Pass, Granderson, Peyton. You're going to have to double team. You have to double team either Davenport or Cam, and you have to at least use a chip block on the other guy. That's going to leave the Big O just ravaging single team blocking in the center. I think this entire defensive line has the potential to wreck every NFL offense they run across.
Yeah, one guy that is a big loss, in my opinion, is Malcolm Roach.
Agreed.
He was playing nasty, really nasty football. Even look at some of those penalties during the preseason. But to lose him for at least 4 games, that's something to take notice about as well.
Now, how about, and I'd love to hear from both you guys, if it's okay, I'll start with you, Brendan. We talked about potential surprises and all that. What about, and I hate to bring a negative angle to the show, but what about a guy that you're really worried, a guy or a position that you're really worried could disappoint for the New Orleans Saints in 2022?
Did you say new addition? You cut out there.
Oh, no, I apologize. I said either individual player or specific position group that you think or are worried could be a disappointment for the Saints this year.
I think the easy one, and I'll take the easy one, is the offensive line. I mean, Bob, you and I talked about a lot this year, just the depth, right? We just talked about luxuries. We talked about positional depth for the Saints, and we highlighted some of the bright spots. But the offensive line, particularly the backup offensive line, did not look good in the preseason. Wasn't great in camp either. And yes, you're returning to health with a guy like Andrews Pete, right? You have the best young center in football. There's some questions for Cesar Ruiz. Ramczyk is arguably the best right tackle in football. Have some questions at left tackle now that James Hurst is definitely going to be your starter. Disappointment might not be the best word, but in terms of comparing them to how good they've been in the past as a unit, this might be taking a little bit of a step back. And if someone gets hurt, you're talking about a major step back. So from that aspect, I'll say offensive line. Again, disappointment's probably not the right word, but unrealistic expectation might be the right word.
Okay. Kyle?
I got 2 positions, linebacker and tight end. 2 positions right there that still are major question marks in my opinion. Behind DeMario Davis, you have Pete Werner that's still kind of nicked up. I know he was limited in practice today. He's trying to get healthy again. But I did have questions of why in the world would the New Orleans Saints did not make a concerted effort in returning Alexander.
Yeah,
I really questioned that. Now, I know there's been some rumors that he wanted too much more money to be able to return or whatever. But if you look at this linebacking core, they still could use him because he was a playmaker. He knew the defense. And I don't know how he was with the coaches, but in my opinion, he was a great teammate. And Quan Alexander could have surely been used, especially when Bond and Werner and those guys were nursing those injuries, man. So that's the biggest question to me right there for linebacker. And the tight ends, the whole group has to just step up.
Yeah.
It has to be right now after, 3 seasons with Johnson and the young man from Dayton, Troutman, and those guys, got to be able to step up. This is this is a year that all of them have to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And be able to get back into some sort of groove. And I know people say, oh, we have Taysom, but Taysom is just learning this particular position. Will he be effective in some situations? Yes. Will he be able to be a mismatch? Yes. But he still is just learning the position. But that unit is a question mark in my opinion. How do you guys feel, Who Dat Nation? Do y'all believe that as well?
Let's hear from you. You guys have been quiet tonight, Who Dat Nation. Either you're 100% enthralled with what Kyle, Brendan, and I are saying, or or you're just not tuning in. Hey guys,
Now,
all
we got
three
whoppers.
positions.
Yeah, man.
All three positions that you guys just outlined are the biggest concerns about the Saints, outside of injury, obviously, going in. As far as the tight end, and you could have turned it into a drinking game as often as I said it this offseason. 19 individual tight ends had better production than the Saints trio of Troutman, Johnson, and Vanette. I don't see a lot coming from that position group this year, because the passing attack is going to revolve around Kamara and those receivers. But like you said, Kyle, you need something out of them. You need at least a threat. You need more consistent blocking. That's a unit that struggled in blocking and holding the edge too. Linebacker is a huge concern. Quan. It mystifies me about Quan too. It further confused me when they did not keep either Eric Wilson or John Bostic on the active roster. Now they were lucky enough to re-sign Wilson to the practice squad, and I fully expect he'll be elevated at some point.
And Bostic, right?
What's
that? Bostic too, right?
No, Bostic re-signed with Washington. That position continues to be thin. And we know Dennis Allen runs with more often than not with two linebackers, and you have two wonderful ones in Werner and Davis. But what if something happens to them? You're in a whole world of trouble at that point. That position-wise, that is the biggest area of concern on this team for me.
Right now, when you're talking about the linebacking cores, you have to have speed across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Werner was a good tackler. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't show speed, and he always was trailing kind of in these when they dragged the receiver or the tight end across the face of the defense, and that's what concerns me. Quan had ability to be able to cover. He was getting up in age, and everybody is, but look at DeMario. He's 33, 34, whatever, and what he's doing. I was always concerned about that, and the young Wilson really showed some promise.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the business aspect. You don't want to release a guy, especially a draftee like Bond, and because he was injured, and there's other ramifications when it comes to these type of issues and trying to bring those guys back and losing them and all this other stuff. But Bostic was really a surprise that they didn't at least try to keep him on board. Even in the preseason games that he was a part of, he did show some promise. And he's a veteran.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I don't know the business like they did, but it did look kind of suspect in my opinion. I'm sorry, Brendan. What you say?
I said we all talked about it when we were on a live stream just like this on draft day when the Saints took Pete Werner. All three of us talked about the concerns in coverage. Now he's came out and proven to be a very good pro and has the potential of being a really good sidekick. But I don't know if he's ever going to emerge to being a true number one kind of middle linebacker. He'll always be a good sidekick. But moving from the defense to the offense says
before we move, man, I got to say this. I like Chase Hansen, and I know he made some plays in the preseason. But is he that type of guy, Brendan and Bob? Do you guys believe that he has enough speed to hold down, let's say, a Kyle Pitts dragging across, on Sunday, or even being close to sticking with him? Or is Pete Werner that guy, with a bum hammy or whatever? So those are the things that I just kind of question. I know we have it's more like a conservative approach to keep certain guys, in my opinion. And this is a speed league. And if those guys are going to be called to do some speed stuff, you can't teach speed. That's right. A product. Either you have it or you don't. So that's all I'm saying.
100% agree with you. Kind of want to transition with this with Winston. Jimmy says Winston's the biggest concern due to health. So kind of a good transition. What I was going to ask you, Kyle, is I'm sure you saw the teaser for the podcast appearance that Jameis is going to be on with Cameron Jordan and Mark Ingram. The great quote that he threw in that teaser saying something along the lines of, "I'm not worried if they feel me as long as I'm feeling me." I think for a lot of people, they look at Jameis Winston and the time that he had in Tampa Bay, and you look at the time that he's had in New Orleans, and he seems like a completely different person. And you could definitely see the energy from Jameis was missed last season. Where do you see Jameis in terms of a leadership standpoint going into 2022, and what do you expect out of him on the field in 2022?
One, it was noticeable the drop-off in production when he was injured and what happened toward the end of the season. And think of how many games the Saints could have won with a healthy Jameis Winston, and still they won, 9 games? So think about that, guys. You had a guy at 5 wins. Well, it was 4-2 before they won that Tampa game that Jameis Winston had the Saints in position of taking that lead in the NFC South. And I understand the questions. The questions, and Solomon Wilcox brought this up to Bob and I, is that Jameis, until he sheds the negativity of that past 30 interception season that he had, it was in 2019, and that seems so far removed now. So the media is good at this. Media is good at pounding in your brain. Look at this, look at this, look at this, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And thus, that's what you're going to keep on looking at, and you're going to keep on harping on. And I think that has been something in the brains of a lot of people in this league, as well as the coaches as well. Credit to Sean Payton to say, forget that. I think this kid has some talent. Let's be able to use him, and let's try to figure out how we can be able to keep him a part of the New Orleans Saints organization. And that was a great signing when they did and how they did it. So right now, it's up to Jameis Winston to be able to shed all of that negativity and produce. Now, with his energy, his leadership, and his ability, he's shown and proven through this offseason that he is the right man for the job. Andy Dalton is a great backup to have. I think Andy is very confident in his abilities as well. Remember, this guy's a former starter with not only the Bengals, but with the Bears as well as the Cowboys. He had to start. So you have guys right now that I like the quarterback room. Ian Book wasn't going to be that guy. Everett was going to be that guy, no matter what Charlie Weiss and Scott Polian and all those guys were saying about him a couple of seasons ago. But right now, I like what Jameis is going to bring in. Yeah, he has to be the one. If he can, Brendan, if he doesn't push himself to make a mistake, if he just be able to play the game that's coming to him, and I think he's matured to this level that the New Orleans Saints are going to see a good Jameis Winston be able to lead this team into the postseason.
Yeah, listen, I think that's so well put. There's no secret that Jameis Winston is the key to the New Orleans Saints' success. I truly do, that he was just hitting his stride in this offense when he went down with injury last year. And you know, that offense in 2021 wasn't going to do spectacular things anyway, because it was just due to a lack of weapons. But I think I agree with you, Kyle. I think Jameis would have probably lifted this team to the playoffs. There's no reason to believe that he wouldn't have. He showed the ability to take care of the football, which has been his biggest criticism throughout his career. We know what he could do as a passer. He can literally rip a defense apart. And the team showed faith in Jameis by giving him the weapons this offseason to do just that. As far as worried about Jameis's health, just like with Michael Thomas, guys, it's one injury. That happens to football players. We're not talking about you want to be concerned about injury history. Be concerned about Andrews Pete. Be concerned about Marcus Davenport. Jameis Winston suffered one injury, and he did all the right things in rehabbing, and he looks stronger than ever. Obviously, if something happens to your quarterback, I agree, Kyle. Andy Dalton, I feel much more confident in Andy Dalton than I did with either Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill to lead this attack. But anytime you lose your starting quarterback, your team's going to be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, man, losing any starter is a big deal, right, guys. I mean, and you can even go further, even losing a player, right? A role player could be a big deal, because if you lose the guy that you can depend upon on special teams to make those plays, that's why JT Gray has been a part of this team for such a long time and has been an all-pro at that position, right? So, yeah, losing anybody is a big deal. But right now, if Jameis is not ready, and I said that even in the offseason, but he's going to start. But even if he were not ready, Andy Dalton was going to be serviceable and could be able to run that New Orleans Saints offense. So I like what they've been able to do to be able to find a suitable backup that's capable of being able to perform, and that's Andy Dalton.
Well, they had to have learned something from last year, because if I've said anything on this podcast over the last 2 months, it is New Orleans started 4 quarterbacks last year. And to me, that the fact, and we've all said it, the fact they won 9 games that way, they nearly made the playoffs that way. They also had 27 different kickers. But New Orleans, for everything that they had thrown at them last year, I don't see why people don't believe that they're going to be a playoff team and potentially NFC contenders this year.
Yeah, Brendan, and I said this when I read the Peter King piece, and we talked to Solomon Wilcots, and I also saw somebody from Yahoo kind of being positive about the New Orleans Saints. You're going to find more people after probably, if it's not the first 4 games, into that 5th, 6th, 7th game, where the Saints, if they have a winning record, that they're going to start to jump on this bandwagon, right? I don't know what you have in Tampa Bay. I don't know what you have in Atlanta, and it's a lot of real serious questions in Carolina. The Saints should be the favorite taking the NFC South. They should be one of the favorites when it comes to the talent level that they have on the team going into this season and being at the top of the NFC South. I saw the New York Times had the Saints ranked 20th in power ranking. I saw even Sports Illustrated's Connor Orr had the Saints winning only 7 games this season. So my question is, what are you looking at when you do your evaluations for this team? Are you really being serious in considering what you see? Or are you just taking what you think you heard from everybody else and being able to make this rash decision about the New Orleans Saints? And of course, and Brendan and Bob, we all know this is true. If you don't have your teams and your players available, if they are injured and they get nicked up, bruised, and all this other stuff, you're still going to have challenges. But that's why they play the game, and that's why they field a 50-man roster each and every season.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're running out of time, so let's do this. Let's get game predictions. New Orleans Saints week 1. They're at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Take on the bitter rival Atlanta Falcons, starting with Kyle T. Mosley. Who do you see winning this game? And if the Saints win, why will they?
Oh, you want to throw in the why.
The
why. Why did the Saints win? Well, Saints fans and who that's, Kyle T. Mosley is going to say this. New Orleans Saints will win the game 28-17. And I said 28-17, and it could be some garbage time toward the end of the game as well. It could be bigger, but that's my projection for the New Orleans Saints. I will be there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's kind of weird to say, not to say Superdome, right? You know, stadium. Ugh. The Origami Stadium. So I will be there to watch them play that game with John Hendrix in the press box. And I will say this, man. I think the New Orleans Saints have it could be a statement game. And sometimes early games like this, just like last year when I was in Jacksonville to watch the Saints make a statement game against Aaron and the Packers, right? No one believed that it was going to be a 8-3 game, right? No one ever thought that. They thought Rodgers was just going to be pass happy against the New Orleans Saints. This could be one of those situations as well, where the Saints could put a 40 burger on. So we don't know, but my projection would be 28-17.
Guys, I'm going to go Saints 31, Falcons 13. I believe that it'll be close on the scoreboard through the first 2, maybe 3 quarters. But the Saints are going to look to take control of both the trenches on both sides of the football. As I said on the onset, I do expect some minor hiccups in the passing game. But they're going to look to establish control with the run, establish balance with the running game. And I just think this defense of the Saints is going to overmatch or outmatch a lot of opponents that they face this year. And the Falcons, Brendan said, you said it at the onset of the show. The Falcons on both sides of the ball, on paper anyway, have as little talent as anybody in the league. I think the Saints will just outman them, out-athlete them, and pull away in the second half for a relatively easy victory.
Well, for me, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints 27-20. Like I said at the onset of the show, I think anytime you take on a divisional rival, doesn't matter how good or bad the teams are, it's going to be a dogfight. And especially in this rivalry, which doesn't get enough credit of being one of the best, if not the best rivalry in the NFL. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think there's going to be hiccups on both sides, especially with Mariota being a first-year quarterback in Atlanta. I think both defenses will come away with the ball once or twice. But all in all, I think that the Saints probably have a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter. Maybe a garbage time touchdown makes it look closer on the scoreboard than it actually is. But I'll take the Saints 27-20, and they will win because I'm gonna throw Mark Ingram in as a dark horse. I think Ingram's able to pound the ball a little bit and be a little bit of a boost of energy for a team that's really looking to win the line of scrimmage early and often.
Don't you get a feeling, Brendan? Don't you get a feeling? And I hate to keep interjecting me, but you get a feeling that Mark Ingram has a little chip on his shoulder as well. You have a feeling that Alvin Kamara, who was voted as a captain for the first time, that's amazing to think as well, right? That he's been so quiet that the legal system and legal issues that he's had has kept him kind of sequestered, so to speak, that he's going to have a monster type of season as well. I just think this defense, if they can take away the ball, guys, at least 2 to 3 times in this game, it's not going to be anywhere close. And that's a possibility.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing with Mark, too, is I think that he knows as well as we know the clock is ticking on Mark Ingram's NFL career. He's definitely got something to prove. And I've said it for years. If it wasn't for Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram might or probably would go down as the best running back in Saints history statistically. And I think he's got something to prove to the people that have kind of swept him under the rug and forgotten about him because, it's the Kamara show now. But I think Boom's got a little bit to say about Zoom and vice versa. See how that goes.
Look, us old guys, we need to have y'all young guys do stuff, every
Right?
now and then. Y'all do the tough stuff, and we come in, we can mop it up. We the closers now, and Mark Ingram is the closer.
I was gonna say what? So Kamara gets the 75 yards on the drive, and Ingram gets the 1 yard touchdown.
Well, that's
Makes
how
sense.
it was. Didn't that happen in preseason?
Yep.
Twice, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, just look out for. But Saints fans, man, who that's? Guys, be excited what you're going to see with this version of the New Orleans Saints. Just trust us and keep following Brendan and Bob and the Bayou Blitz, please, man, because these guys are doing a tremendous job. They're bringing it every week.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. You can follow our guy Kyle T. Mosley right there on Twitter at KTMose. You'll recognize him. He's got that fancy blue check mark. But follow all that Kyle does.
Happen?
Shoot, I mean, you only run 20 different pages. Let's see if I can name them off.
It feels like that, Brendan. It really does, man. I'm starting to grow some hair as a result.
Pelican Scoop when the NBA season comes back. Preseason opens up next month, so Pelicans fans, Pelican Scoop. Got HBCU, which you've been busy with them all summer long. Check Kyle's work out there. And, of course, the Saints News Network. Kyle, you're going to have a really busy fall, my friend, but continue the good work. And if you guys don't already, follow all of those that I listed. Bob at BobbyR2613. I'll let Bob give the spill on how to follow the Bayou Blitz all over the World Wide Web.
Well, guys, first of all, follow all three of us along with John Hendrix at the Saints News Network, at Saints News over on Twitter, and Saints News Network on Facebook. We stream all of our Bayou Blitz shows through the Saints News Network, as well as our Bayou Blitz page, which is on Facebook, and at Bayou Blitz Pod over on Twitter. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you follow Brendan, myself, and Kyle for our pregame show and our halftime spectacle. After some of the things we pulled last year, we can call it a spectacle. Make sure you follow us for all. We will give you a live pregame show, and we will give you live halftime reactions and analysis every single week during the New Orleans Saints season for as long as it lasts. So make sure you follow us there too. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for what you do for all three of us. And on behalf of John Hendrix, promote this Bayou Blitz. Promote it like it's your own, because it is. Get it in the ears of family members. Get it in the ears of other Saints fans. Even if they aren't active on Facebook or Twitter, point them in the direction of YouTube. Grow this brand. It's your product.
And for myself, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BT Boylan. Like Bob said, you guys have already done a fantastic job. Like I said, by the numbers between YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, just Saints News Networks, you're looking around 600 viewers live or on the replay week to week. So we really appreciate everything you guys have done for that. And we will see you back next week. It's going to be exciting. Not next week. I got to catch myself. Bob just said it. We will catch you guys for Sunday morning. Sunday morning. We will have the Bayou Blitz pregame show, same place. I can't say the same time. It's going to be a lot earlier than this edition of it. But we'll see you guys on Sunday morning right here. Check the Bayou Blitz Twitter for polls. We're going to have those polls again for what you guys want us to talk about on the pregame show. Until then, that's Kyle T. Mosley. That's Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Bayou Blitz podcast. As always, find your peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you on Sunday.
And be tenacious.
Be tenacious.
Be tenacious.